then. Oh, it just a
Oh.
robotic voice tell me the meeting's being recorded. That didn't happen before. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Charlie, Briar, Boyo.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Not my pleasure and my honor. Thank you very much for joining me. I've been a fan of your Instagram for quite some time now. I reached out to you. I think your name came up in a chat between Northeast Piper Mark and Uncle Phil, and you had sent some lovely cigars, I believe, to Mark. So that's how your name came up, and I thought I'm going to contact him and see if he'll come on because he's very popular on Instagram. And also, I wanted to bug you to make a YTPC channel, but I hear you're invested in better and bigger things. Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, talking about popularity, the first thing I haven't done is actually put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So I've done that right now. There we are.
Are you very popular?
Yeah, no, it's just sod's law. I very much want to start doing a kind of podcast.
Right.
I'm not sure if we're going to do a YouTube channel as well. And by we, I mean Longshanks Piper, who I met over Instagram.
Okay.
And like many people I've met over Instagram on the pipe community, become very good friends. And we're very like-minded chaps. We suffer from posh voice, no money. And we like all things traditionally British. And that's it. So I think he'd be a great guy to do it with. And it's just we haven't even got things into motion yet, purely because of COVID, and it's something that I think is better to do face to face, at least to begin with.
So this idea is over a year. Longshanks Piper, like you say, he's into the good stuff too. Jermaine's Gawath, formerly, first and foremost, isn't he? So can I ask you about your name? I always like to ask people, Briar, Boyo. Then we've got the Welsh flag in the background as well, and the name's Boyo. Can you?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he says. Oh yeah, that old thing.
I did put it up as a joke Zoom call quite a while ago, and yeah, why not? It's well, my father is Welsh before he is anything else, and grew up with a Welsh nan, speaking Welsh on her lap. Up until the age of 7 when she died. Despite my accent, I consider myself Welsh before anything else.
Okay.
And I just thought it sounded nice, Briar, Boyo.
Yeah, it does.
And that was it. I think I disappoint slightly a few Welsh people when I think they then get chatting to me and they hear my accent. But I suppose one of my Welsh friends often call me Mugblood because I'm a mix of pretty much everything, every nation regarding the UK. But Welshman first.
Good man. Well, that makes sense. And Briar, Boyo, we often wondered, Phil and I, where's the Welsh accent? Why does it call himself Briar, Boyo? But I can't do the accent. Phil can do it wonderfully. I'm sure yours is perfect.
When I get drunk, my Welsh accent kind of comes out a bit, Really? I think I play upon it. If I'm speaking to people about being aggressive, then I'll quite often say, "All right, guys, look, let's just calm it down a bit, please. I don't want to fight." And people tend to just kind of stop it right there. You imagine if someone's trying to start a fight, and then you walk up and say, "Right, chaps, how about we call it quits?" And they are quite often followed by a punch in your direction.
Especially the handlebar moustache as well. It's just too far. It's too far.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I've had a few people from the Instagram community who have messaged me and they've said, "Oh, I assume you're a scholar. I assume you've got a degree of some kind and all this and all these assumptions." And I think that's not just the accent. I think it's partly down to Instagram. Everyone's life looks pretty imperfect on Instagram because obviously that's what you want people to see. Yeah. But all in all, I've found a lot of comfort with the Instagram community, particularly during this pandemic.
Yeah.
Everyone's so kind, as you know. And so, of course, that's why I've been sending out loads of care packages myself and just kind of returning, sharing the love, doing the favor.
Nice. Yeah. Well, how long have you been on Instagram then? Good for you as the pipe kind of thing?
I always stayed away from Instagram because I thought it's once I'm part of Instagram, I won't be off it.
Right.
So I always shied away from it. I started pipe smoking about 2 years ago, probably about 2.5 years ago. And I just thought, yeah, I'll make it a kind of pipe smoking channel, see if anyone else, has that going. And that was it. So yeah, about 2.5 years. That's it, yeah.
I've only been smoking properly for about 2 years, but first pipe about 8 years ago, but I didn't smoke regularly and I didn't know how to smoke.
Yep. Yeah, none of us did.
What's
when you start out, no one knows when they start out, do they?
You just gotta eventually stumble across Mutton Chop Piper's channel, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it depends on the circumstance, because when I first started smoking pipes, it was mostly when I was walking the dogs. And so I remember one of Mutton Chop Piper's videos, he was describing the bellows method. Yeah. And I found that was kind of the method I used straight off the bat. Because you imagine, it was always in my mouth, mostly for posing purposes to begin with. And of course, I needed my hands free in case the dogs try to jump off a cliff or something, because it was quite rocky where we were. And so I was quite lucky in that respect. But of course, the moments I sat down to smoke, my cadence was, as you can imagine, just really, too quick, as it is for everyone. But despite the tongue bite from the aromatics, I did just fall in love with it.
Yeah. So you were like a lot of people then, you started off with aromatics then, or you would
sorry.
No, I was just gonna say you would still smoke them occasionally as well, I'm sure. But you were like the rest of us then. Did you go straight down cherry lane, try and find a cherry? Or
for me it was vanilla. I've always loved vanilla, and at the time I was cooking out cuisine in kitchens, so of course it's something I was familiar with. And I bought, it was McBaron's vanilla flake.
Lovely, yeah.
And I just picked up the flake and thought, I guess I'll fold it and just whack it in. And I really filled the bowl. It was luckily it was a pot, so of course I had the thin walls to rely on, and of a John Brumfit I bought from Gareth and Hogarth. And just packed it, lit it. Still my first smoke, despite puffing very quickly, it was about 45, 50 minutes. And the moment I started puffing on it, it was perfect. It really spoke to me.
Were you a cigarette smoker for many years before, or what?
Yeah, I used to, but when I smoked cigarettes, it was always the Gauloise with no filter.
Okay.
Or or American spirits, but I quite often take the filter off the American spirits. I like the proper tobacco taste. And of course, with cigarettes these days, it's quite hard to find that. But when I first started pipe smoking, I was smoking e-cigarettes for the nicotine satisfaction, but I was having cigars. And because I started it on my own, particularly smoking cigars, I kept inhaling them. And and as you can imagine, it was very raspy voice, and ladies didn't seem fine, but all the same, I thought this is good. And I then smoked a cigar with a friend of mine. He said, "You don't inhale it, you idiot." Right. And so when it came to pipes, I thought, well, it must be the same. So of course I didn't. Luckily, didn't have. I think maybe if I did, it might be a different story.
Yeah, absolutely. You maybe wouldn't have kept at it. You mentioned there you are a trained chef. You're classically trained chef then. How long ago were you doing that, or are you still doing that, or what's happening?
Let me think. I'm always terrible with dates.
Roughly.
I'd say about 6 years ago. Graduated from a culinary school in London. However, from the age of 17, I found myself stranded, so to speak, in the south of France, and I got a job as a pot washer and worked my way out. But not having a good degree.
How were you?
Well,
How did you become stranded? What a terrible place to become stranded in, eh, folks?
that is the thing, isn't it? I mean, I know there are worse places, of course. It's not like Beirut or anything, but my mother moved to the south of France with my sisters, and the whole idea of the family was that eventually we'd all end up in France, and then it got to the point where my father asked me as a young teenager, do you want to move to France with your sisters and your mother? He had to stay here for work. And I, being a stubborn little sod at the age of, I think, about 14, I said, no, I'm British, I live in Britain. Which is probably the most nationalist I've ever sounded, luckily. But
well done, steeply uphill from there, was it? The nationalist.
Luckily, no. So my sisters lived there with my mother for a few years, and we'd go over every other weekend. And then my sisters came back to the UK for uni, and I was in between jobs, having dropped out of A levels.
Okay.
And my father said, "Look, I can't visit your mum for a bit. Here's a ticket to Nice. Go and keep her company." And that was it. So of course, free holiday. I saw it as. So I went down, and he gave me, I think, about €100 spending money, which is of course a lot, but at £8.50 a pint there, I spent it very quickly. And I waited a week and called him and said, "When's my return flight?" He said, "When you can fucking afford it," and put the phone down. And so I thought, let's get a job.
Yeah.
And so that was it. So I mean, don't get me wrong, stranded with Ma in the in the 2-bedroom apartment down there. But it was at 17, all of a sudden working in a kitchen with an angry, cross-eyed Dutch chef. It's character building, that's for sure.
You didn't have to spend any nights on the streets, at least, and there wasn't a large period between your job taking place. And
no, not at all. But not having any A levels or a degree, it got to the point where I thought, well, I'm quite passionate about food, and I hadn't been working in kitchens for a few years, and I just thought, I suppose it would be good to have a piece of paper that says I'm qualified to do something. And so I went to culinary school. That was it.
Yeah, you and I share that in common. Well, I was in hospitality. That's all. I mean, I can't cook, but I was never a chef. I was a bartender. I was the other end of it. But a lot of my friends are chefs, obviously. Then, and I know the industry well enough, and I know what it's like to work. And you burn the candle at both ends for so long. You can only do it for so long. But
it's no wonder so many people smoke cigarettes. Is that you need that kind of upper.
Yeah. Oh, and the other things we'll not mention for several reasons as well. The espresso powder.
Illegal snuff, I believe.
Yeah, the good stuff. Right, back to pipes then. Let's see. So, wasn't going to talk about this until later, but you did mention you've only been smoking for a couple of years, 2.5, 3 years. So you've amassed a number of pipes. Let's think then, how many pipes a week is that? Am I allowed to tell the viewers how many pipes you have?
500 altogether.
500.
Well, I stopped counting at 500. It hasn't gone a lot higher than that, because at that point it was a mixture of I wasn't liking where I was. The reason I got into pipe smoking was to deal with withdrawals from coming off antidepressants, and a nice way of something to look forward to was buying pipes on eBay, and I can't turn down a bargain. And a lot of the time it would just be some old ladies put a pipe out. It could be a Hardcastle Deluxe, but the title would be pipe, and the description would be a pipe, and I could have it for £5.
Yeah.
And my intention was always to then renovate them when I then had the skill, which of course I still lack in many ways. And all of a sudden I had about 500 pipes.
It just happened.
Of course, I know what pipes I like now. I know what my what my kind of shape and size is. I went through the phase of buying oversized pipes, and the Ompools and the Hungarians, and absolutely loving them, and I don't touch them anymore. In fact, I've sold a few on eBay. Yeah.
So it's a
So,
sell and buy type thing you've got going on then. But I'm sure you've got quite a few absolute gems that people maybe didn't know what they had. And
yeah, for
it's
sure,
all
for
changed
sure.
now, eBay's all changed now. People tend to know now what the value of what they have. It's harder to find a deal, isn't it, these days?
Yeah, I think that was lockdown, really. I think a lot of people are probably stuck indoors, not obviously with lots of spare time. And I think quite a few seasoned pipe smokers thought, hang on a minute, and they've got on eBay, because I used to get, for example, the Jambos, the Tangerine Nations. I used to get those for about a tenner a pop. 20 to 25 if they were unsmoked in a box. And I have about 40 of them. And of course now, smoked out of the box, you're looking to spend, at least if you're lucky, £40 for one.
Yeah.
So the game has totally changed. I do still get the occasional gems, the ones that go under the radar, but even ones that are poorly titled, people seem to find now. All the days of me getting a James Upshaw Magnum for 30 quid.
But that has happened, yeah.
And I sold it recently for, I think, 170, which I think was a fair deal for him. It was over the moon.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, why not?
There you go, folks. There you go. That's great. Over things like 1,000% profit. Oh, well, not really, but that's great. Let's see. Is there any? You say that you've kind of gone off your bent pipes or your Impals. Is there any particular shape that I quite often? Well, you're smoking an Impal-y type pipe there at the minute, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'd say full bent billiard. Sorry, light's not great in here. It's very much your kind of Comoys or Chacom shape. I think it's the 7LE 614 is quite similar. It's the full bent billiard, but with this, it's the stem. It's the bend on the stem that just makes it sit absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
This would be my lunting pipe. As I said, when I smoke pipes everywhere. So if I'm walking out in the street, and so because of that, you don't want to have to, you want to have your hands free, and that's why now this is probably about the biggest pipe I really go for. Let me see. I've got this is my kind of size again. I do find it funny that people seem to go for bigger is better. Look, as I said, I admit I did. But for me, I find the smaller pipe smoke just as long.
Yeah.
Particularly when you got really wet latakia in it. Excuse me.
You would lunt so much so, in fact, that you've perhaps become a good person to estimate the weight of something in the mouth. Isn't that right? Would you mind regaling me once more of the story of you and Rose, if you wouldn't mind, please? I think it would be.
Yeah, I think this also comes from maybe having 500. But you're right, I'm quite obsessed with the weight. And Nate at Rose Pipes, we were having a nice Zoom call. He was showing me this beautiful bulldog he made. And I said, what's the weight of that? It looks about 54 grams, I think I said. And he put it on the scale and he looked quite surprised. I said, oh, it's 49. Wow. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, close, oh well. And then I carried on talking. I noticed he wasn't really listening and he was looking down and interrupted me. He said, Charlie, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the scales weren't zeroed. He said, you're not going to believe it. And of course, he picked up the phone and showed that it was dead on 54 grams. Of course, he said, you should make pipes. He's getting to making pipes. And of course, if I had a guy like him helping me, then I'd be set. But for me, an ideal, a bent pipe ideally will be under 50 grams, and a straight pipe no more than 30, 31, 32, maybe if it's quite short. I think that's a good call.
Yeah. That's hilarious, so that you're able to, and so bloody close to it.
Yep.
So I haven't asked you what tobacco you're smoking at the minute, actually. I need to ask you that.
But at the moment, it's rehydrated Jermaine's full Latakia, and I think I've done a bit too well of a job at rehydrating it.
How did
I'm
you,
afraid.
what was your process?
I used a broken bit of terracotta,
Just
which I'd soaked in water.
okay, okay.
Yeah, soaked in water, and it's said that it can make contact with tobacco, but I'll quite often put a bit of baking parchment, to separate them, just in case. I don't like the idea of them touching. You don't know where the terracotta's been, even if you've sterilized it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite blend of the time. It's just 100% Latakia, and I am a Marmite kind of person regarding food. I love jelly deals. I love the mentioned Marmite and Latakia. As much as I'm moving away from it, it was the thing that really kind of cemented my love for pipes, particularly for tobacco. Actually, before then it was pipes and the look of the pipe, and yes, the experience. But I wasn't quite obsessed with tobacco. I was very much a pipe guy rather than a tobacco guy.
Yeah,
but Latakia does it for me.
It reeled you in. It was wasn't one of your first smokes, my mixture 965, the same as me, or was it one your third or fourth tin or something? Were you saying?
It was Baby's Bottom. Was the first Balkan I had. And it's when I came back to the UK for a bit, and I knew that Dunhill did pipes and tobacco. In fact, when I was looking to buy my first pipe, I was looking for a Dunhill. You can imagine my surprise when I saw the price. And the moment I lit up that bowl, it really just blew me away.
Really?
I was standing outside of Specsavers, in the middle of town, and I remember it so vividly. I look back now, and with a kind of better palate and understanding of tobacco, it wasn't just the Latakia. It was more kind of the Orientals, and anyone that knows Baby's Bottom, it's the Orientals that really carry it. But the smokiness, the spiciness, I enjoyed the McBaron's aromatics because it was pipe tobacco, but that was when I started realizing that I didn't have to put up with potentially a sugary, sweet, desserty type of tobacco.
Latakia, that's great. I didn't get along. I didn't dislike Latakia. I just and I did enjoy the likes of my mixture back in, but it took me until only very recently where I'm actually, really craving it and stuff like that. So I really do like my English now, but that's only been a recent.
So you didn't. So that's interesting because I started on it, and now I'm kind of moving away from Latakia.
Is it because of the change of seasons, though? Do you think, or is it just you've smoked too much of it for a while?
I find, as lovely as Latakia is, it does have a tendency to almost mask everything else in the blend.
Yeah.
I first noticed this when I bought some Peterson's Old Dublin, which I absolutely adore. And
I haven't opened it yet. I'm looking forward to it. Sorry.
Oh, it is gorgeous. It is absolutely, you'll love it. And particularly if you're liking Latakia more and more, it will be a blend that I'm sure will become a firm favorite. Okay. However, I found the first kind of 5 bowls from the tin were absolutely wonderful, and to the point I was smoking it every day. And then it got to the point where all of those wonderful little nuances and all these different notes I picked up from it, it just became Latakia, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I love Latakia, but it became almost quite not so much bland, but everything else hid. And at that point, I was also seeing a lot of people on Instagram and people that, like me, loved Balkans. I also saw them trying a lot of vapors, and I didn't even know what it meant. It was still about a year into smoking pipes because I was just so obsessed with Latakia. And it was, I know it was a bit silly, and I did admit it, but I thought, well, I like it, why not? And then I thought, you know what, I'll stop. And it was difficult, but I then moved on to some burley mixtures, which didn't really do it for me. What kind of really spoke to me were the I think underrated Dunhill, the 3-year matured and the Royal Yacht. Those all helped me kind of realize there was more to my pipe smoking life than Latakia, you know. Yeah. Have you tried either of those?
Royal Yacht, yes. What was the other one you mentioned? The
Dunhill 3-year matured.
No, I haven't tried that. I haven't tried any Dunhill blends. Apart from, actually, I have had some 965, but I never had a tin of my own. I just tried somebody else's. Yeah, because I was so late. But I am gonna make a point. I think I know a place. I won't say on air where, but in Ireland that may still have some tins. So I might be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, I think I've spotted a place. I think with what I do is I go on Google, and of course people take a picture of all the tobacco, and you can see how recent the pictures are. And I reckon I've spotted some Dunhill tins. Yeah.
Nice.
But again, I wouldn't dare say.
No, of course not. Not even to me privately. I'll have to.
Oh, of course.
I'll take the ferry over first thing tomorrow morning.
Yeah, for sure. The thing is, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because it's such a niche kind of hobby. But you know, 1 minute I think I need to rush there and buy all these tins before they go. Then you think, well, what are the chances of them disappearing? But it's happened to me about 3 times, even in Brighton. I've seen loads of Dunhill tins on the shelves in certain shops,
and then you get
I convinced myself you don't need to rush. Then all of a sudden gone. Yeah.
No,
so I've given up on that. I've given up on that pipe for now. It's well, not the pipe, the tobacco. A bit too moist, even too moist for me, which is saying something.
But Jesus, are you gonna? Let's see. I need to ask you about tobacco. The silly question I ask everyone, but I like this question. The desert island discs type thing. If you only had 3 tobaccos for the rest of your days, what would they be? Those 3 tobaccos.
The full Latakia. Though it hasn't given a good example of itself today, but the JF Germain's full Latakia, because I've sent it to in a lot of care packages, and I've just named it Mystery Mix or Black Gold, and I haven't told people what it is. And quite often I'll do this to people that say that are quite gobsmacked that I'd smoke it straight, you know, just straight Latakia. And they've come back and said, "What was that? That was amazing." You know, people seem to think it will be overwhelming, or of course it's smooth. It's got delicious herbiness to it. I can pick up oregano is the only one, but it's lovely, and it's by far, I think, the reason why the JF Germain's tobacco is so highly regarded. It's a lot better than the Gowith Latakia, for example, which I can't really smoke straight. It's too wet woody. The third would be Bosun Cut Plug.
Righty-ho, yes, brilliant.
Yeah, you're a big fan of.
Yep, you'd prefer the cut plug rather than the plug itself, would you?
Yeah. I think the cut plug, it's just right. It's an all-day smoke for me, cut plug. It's got that strong, almost kind of nicotine tickle at the back of your throat. But to me, it seems to have a bit more kind of rose, a bit more sweetness to it than the actual Bosun plug.
Yeah.
And the third one, I suppose I feel like I almost have to pick an aromatic. But I suppose I kind of just did. Third would probably be Triple Play by GLPs.
That's one I've never heard.
Yeah, it's absolutely delicious. It's a vapor, and I was sent over a care package from an American friend. He was very kind, but all sorts of blends that I've mentioned I hadn't had, and I felt quite let down by a few of them. And I had the Triple Play, and I didn't read up on it before smoking it, and I could not pin what it was. It was just so flavorful, so well behaved, and such a clean tobacco smoke.
Mhm.
It was very much what cigarettes used to be. You know, I absolutely loved it. So that'd be it.
No topping, just a straight vapor, is it?
I don't believe there's a topping, but it may be a kind of How of the Wind kind of mix. It smells like there's a topping, and some people may claim there is, like they do How of the Wind, but I don't believe so.
Mm.
No, it's got this that delicious, sour, tart, matured Virginia smell.
Lovely.
You know, and for me, I like everything pickled, and that really is it won me over the moment I smelled it.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Have you tried talking about vapors? Peter Heinrich's Curly Block. Tried that one yet?
No, I haven't. No,
Very
no,
good.
I've seen it. I think you had some, no, in one of your videos.
Yeah, John Pounder sent me a sample, but I think I'm gonna have to order some. It's pretty amazing stuff. Although I think at the moment they are having less Perique in it and adding more Kentucky. But I think that's
Okay.
you know the way there's a bit of a it's tighter with Perique these days, or I don't know what's
Mm-hmm.
going on,
Yep.
but
Yep.
James. But
Blame the pandemic.
is it just that? Yeah.
Well, I said that's what I've heard the blame on, but I think everyone's using that as an excuse these days. But yeah.
But I hope it doesn't change it too much. What do you think about when that happens? Do you think they should, keep the name, or it's a bit? I think they should change the name, Curly Block Point Two or something.
I think maybe just do it as an addition, or an amendment. You know, keep the name, but I think be honest with everyone. You know, be honest with the people, and I think if you've got fans of the blend, then if they're informed and they're going to expect, for example, less Perique, Kentucky, then they won't be let down.
Yeah.
I think just be honest with people.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I said, maybe just do Amendment 1, and then when you need to change something, an Amendment 2, and just keep that going. I think it would be a shame to just totally lose the name altogether. But I think companies in general just need to be more honest with people. You know, and I think people be so, and it must be difficult for blenders if you suddenly lose this this great supply, this consistent supply and quality, and all of a sudden you've got to wiggle around, and it's not fair on either party in keeping the name and then keeping everyone in the dark. People would be far more sympathetic and understanding, and probably would enjoy the new blend more if they were honest.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. But I don't know anything about blending, or that's it. So.
Makes a lot of sense.
Not yet.
Not yet, then. Although I did see a post of yours, you had gotten your hands on some essential oils of some sort. So were you trying to blend recently, or trying to top something, or what was going on there?
That was some Latakia blend roll cake
From McBaron?
And,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, despite the name, it had next to no Latakia in it.
Yeah.
I was promised by the website I bought it from in Germany that it had Kentucky in it, which I'm a huge fan of. And I just trusted the website stupidly, and actually it was Cavendish.
Really?
And yeah, I'm not a massive fan of Cavendish, and I don't get on well with McBaron's Cavendish. It's me personally, and yeah, I smoked it, and it was just kind of bitey maple sugar behind it that I think quite a lot of the McBarons have.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, I'll do what I used to do. I'll just top it up with some Latakia. And so I mixed around with some Latakia.
Did you use full Latakia?
Oh yeah, JF Germain's full Latakia, of course. It is the best. I'd say if anyone's blending, ever blending with using Latakia, just JF Germain's always.
Always.
When Gareth, obviously Samuel Gareth and Gareth Hogarth have wonderful Balkans. But as I said, if you try their Latakia on its top, it's not anywhere near the quality of the JF Germains, for sure.
What's it lacking, do you think? Is it just a very high moisture, even more moisture than germains, or what's going on there? What do you think? Not as
Um,
campfire.
it's lighter in colour,
Hmm.
which to me would suggest it's not smoked either for as long or as high a heat. Um, but I would also just say the wood quality and the chippings that they're using to actually smoke it. Um, it's it just tastes wood chippy, and I can't be specific with it. You know what I mean? It's not quite cedar, it's not quite pine. Um, it the only wood that really comes to mind, it's just almost kind of wet plasterboard, working on the buildings like that kind of. It's not pleasant.
Yeah,
Um,
stringent.
and this is on its own, as I'll stress again, on its own. When it's blended, and they're master blenders, they know what they're doing. But as I said, I'll quite often surprise people with the JF Germains. They'll be blown away of how wonderful it is to smoke on its own. No tongue bites.
You used to call it black gold, you said earlier, but that name
Yeah.
is actually quite apt, isn't it? These days, for
Mhm.
the way germains are going, it's kind of like the road of esoterica down in
Yeah.
yeah, it's getting
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's it's funny because I often go into kind of the the tobacco shops and kind of backwater tobacco shops. The old school websites, quite difficult to navigate sometimes.
Mhm.
And I remember when people were first saying you can't really get JF Germains anymore in the UK or they're low on stock. I thought, really? Um, and yeah, then I even went to these kind of lesser known websites. And funnily enough, one of the only tobaccos left was full Latakia.
There you go.
Because obviously people think, well, it's a blending tobacco. I won't buy that. And I urge, honestly, people don't buy all of it because I love it, but I urge people to go out and just try some of it on its own.
Mm.
Obviously, if you like Latakia, if you don't like Latakia, then
Yeah, don't.
don't bother.
Um, let me see. There's a couple of things, personal questions I wanted to ask you about. I often see a very, your better half is a pipe smoker as well.
Yeah,
Here on your Instagram. Is her name Chloe, did you say?
yeah, Chloe. Yeah.
Chloe. And did you get her into that, or did you just happen to meet at a pipe smokers forum, or what happened there?
No, I got her into it. I got her off cigarettes and onto ECOS. So it's a kind of in between cigarettes, in between electric cigarettes and hybrid. And I noticed when she did smoke cigarettes, it would be the kind of Marlboro Reds, Rothman Reds, so the strong stuff.
Right.
So I might be able to get her onto pipes.
Yeah.
Now, I'd already tried her on cigars, and that just didn't work.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'll make sure it won't be a strong tobacco for her first pipe. I bought her a Peterson Belgique
Nice.
for 50 quid, which up to that point was the most money I'd ever spent on the pipe, even though I had about 100 at that point. And I bought her, I think it was, yes, toffee caramel, McBaron's toffee caramel flake. And she smoked it. And she just said, no, it's not for me. Now, I was smoking a quite oversized, so I was still a fan of oversized pipes then, an oversized GBD billiard.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, I think it was Ashton's Artisan mixture in it.
It's pretty heavy in the Latakia.
That's it. So she smelled the Latakia and said, oh, that's nice. And of course, she's South African. So, of course, it would have reminded her of a braai, barbecue. So I handed it to her. And next thing I know, I'd lost my pipe. And something that repeats itself over and over again. She'll quite often, take my pipe. I'm all too happy for her to have it. She obviously enjoys it. And I'm very lucky that she, I can share that hobby with her.
Mm-hmm.
But it just goes to show I was sexist in the most caring of ways, but still it was discrimination.
Yeah.
And I got my lesson. That was it.
I think I've recently done the same thing, Charles. My wife's, she comes from a family of, there's a lot of cigars flying around, but never, I think her grandparents smoked pipes when they were knocking about, the grandfathers anyway. But yeah, and she has a history of smoking cigarettes and the odd cigar, basically. So I give her a pipe with Same kind of idea as you. Well, it was lane limited, 1 queue. So
Yeah, yeah.
bound to love it. But I still haven't. It wasn't for her, but I still haven't given her anything stronger. But I think that's what my next call is
Mhm.
going to do. A nice summer's day, give her some Latakia, or give her a nice Kentucky, or give her something that would be similar to a cigar, maybe a cigar blend or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
don't
I
make
think this is sorry. I think this is a mistake with, it depends where you're coming from. If you're new to pipe smoking, it doesn't necessarily mean obviously you're new to smoking.
Mm,
And I think the thing that I fear would turn a lot of people off pipe smoking is the fact that people are often encouraged, they're discouraged from the stronger blends, the vapors, the Lakelands and things like that, and particularly the Balkans. And they're encouraged to have aromatics. Now, what's the first thing you do when you start smoking a pipe?
smoke like fuck. Yeah.
Really, really quick, really, really quick. And obviously, if you have a mild tobacco, so low in nicotine, then you're not going to get nicotine sickness.
Mm,
And if it's sweet and tastes like dessert, then you're going to be like a kid again, and you're going to, just keep going at it. But of course, the sugars burn your tongue.
mhm.
And I think that's the kind of, I think, mistake that still a lot of people do is I get starting people on mild nicotine, but starting someone on an aromatic, I haven't got any of my friends who I've introduced pipes to. I've never started them on aromatic,
Mm.
and some of them have then tried them on, in their own time, and they've gone, oh, I can see why you don't like this, because again, they're still new, and they puff away, and you're bound to get tongue bite.
Yeah.
And something like Latakia, I find I put Latakia in any blend, it'll stop tongue bite.
Yeah, cool.
Apart from McBaron plum cake.
Right. Yeah.
McBaron plum cake is my kryptonite.
You call it
can't.
You call it the bulldog or something, or
Yeah, call it bulldog. Yeah, because it bites. It bites, and it just, you'll feel it for several days after. At least I will.
yeah. I think they need to touch more Latakia just to cool it down a bit more, or too much.
Well,
The topping's too heavy or something as well.
yeah, there's definitely something that just disagrees with me. I was told by a very seasoned friend that I should smoke it maybe in a meerschaum with a 9mm filter.
Mhm.
And I thought, if I need to smoke a tobacco in a meerschaum with a 9mm to appreciate it, then that would suggest to me that it's maybe not me that's the problem. But he loves the stuff. But he admitted he has to smoke either in a churchwarden or, a mere and 9mm.
Yeah. Fair play, but yeah, you're right. I mean, why should you have to adjust to? But he just wants you to love it as much as he does, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about style for a moment. By looking at you, people would see. I know you're a fan of history. I know you're a bit of a history buff. You certainly seem to know a lot about modern, current, and historic warfare, things like that. And your look,
Mhm.
very dashing, very good-looking young man, and I think your look kind of helps you a lot there. It's beautiful. We can talk later. But what's with the look, Charles? What attracted you? Handlebar moustache and the crew cut, the proper old-fashioned crew cut. Then.
Mm. And funnily enough, my 18th birthday, I was sent a birthday card by my dad's dad, and it said from one 18-year-old to another. There was a picture of him in his RAF uniform.
Lovely.
And he was a nurse in the RAF, and I loved the haircut, and I'd seen it before on some of my ancestors in pictures and that. And I needed a haircut at the time, and I thought, you know what? And I went into the hairdresser and I handed him the picture of my grandfather at 18. And of course, like lots of people back in those days, as much as he looked 18, he also, you could think he was 40. They looked so, so much older, so much more mature. And I had the cut, went and saw him a few days later, and he always made fun of my haircuts. What are you doing? What do you call that? And of course, I walked in, he did the same. God, what do you call that? I said, what you had at 18?
Brilliant.
And I've always, since then, I've always loved that style, that kind of very vintage look. some people would call me a hipster, and I don't mind hipsters, but I've never I don't feel like one myself. I just feel like someone who's very enthusiastic about history, not necessarily. Um, I don't think that word represents me.
No.
I have the handlebar purely because it's when I started smoking pipes. I thought, well, people are going to look at me because I've got a pipe in my mouth. So finally, I wasn't worried about the occasional gay remarks and things like that for having a moustache that I had when I was early teens, trying to wear a moustache was Freddie Mercury and everything else. So that was it.
It suits you, sir. Suits you, sir. Although obviously used to you looking like that. I haven't seen you in any other style, but as far as I can imagine, suits you, sir. Suits you.
Well, I had the skinhead look for a while.
The skinhead, were you?
Yeah, I had skinhead look with a painter's moustache. Used to be called Mini Bronson, the criminal.
Yeah.
And I did it when I was just working in kitchens, just because obviously I was getting so hot in that. But I then worked out very quickly that if you said "excuse me" to someone in the pub, they tended to move. They didn't just move their shoulder, and it made life a lot easier for this little short ass. So that was it.
Yeah. I did that too. I had skinhead for many years. I have quite a few tattoos as well, and nobody asked you for the time or directions,
Yeah,
it was quite handy, isn't it?
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
good.
I've also got a resting bitch face as well, which doesn't help.
Do you?
Yeah, my resting kind of face is frowning,
Right.
and I'm quite often clenching my jaw as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was growing up, I used to be in a club or more often a pub. I'll just go, what are you looking at? What do you mean? What do you mean what I'm looking at? And they think I was trying to stare them down. I was just daydreaming.
Yeah.
That was it.
The moustache kind of would help with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, back in the days when I first had a moustache, it was just before everything came back in fashion with the beard and the facial hair and everything like that. And particularly in Brighton, I often quite often got the attention from the same sex as being the gay capital of the UK. And yeah, I for ages I was single and thought, why am I single? And realised that it was still seen as quite a gay thing to have a tash. I thought that was just the kind of it's the throwback to the 70s.
Yeah.
I remember saying to my mother as a young man, did everyone just have a moustache when you grew up then? She went, well, everyone that was gay, yeah, or a Marine. I thought, oh, okay. So I probably shaved it off. But so as I said, yeah, the moment it came back into fashion, I thought now's the time.
I would grow one out in November for Movember occasionally, but Steph doesn't really like it, so I'm not allowed. Maybe one day.
That's quite often the case. I've actually used suit one as well.
I think so. I think I do. My dad had one for years, and I'm quite like him, so he suited it. And, yeah, who knows? You also lived out in Malta for a good while, didn't you? Or do you have some sort of roots or ancestry there, or what happened there?
No, my father ended up moving to the south of France permanently with my mum, and there's just so much crime down there. And my mother grew up in an RAF family moving around the Middle East, and so for her, it's very important to feel safe. As much as she's good she's quick on her feet and quick-witted. As she was getting older, of course, she just wanted to be able to relax.
Yeah.
So my father thought, where can we go where there's little crime and it's hot? And he remembered he had a good holiday as a child in Malta, so they then moved there.
Yeah, and they all speak.
So I'll go back.
English is the language there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is on Malta, where they are on Gozo, which is still part of Malta, but a small island to the northeast. Yeah, you'll get the occasional old farmer there that won't speak a word, which is quite charming. And they tend to mean well. But I had quite a lot of trouble on there being brought up in the UK, which can have island mentality, as we all know, with the dreaded B word recently happening. But it wasn't. The island we were on goes, I think, very xenophobic, quite closed-minded, and that's where I met Chloe, funnily enough, and her being a black girl. There were quite a few occasions where I really had to. It really tested my patience for people.
Yeah.
But then also, you imagine with some people, they give us such weird looks. It's quite funny to see. She must have been the first black girl for some of these people to see. And when they first saw her, she was often wearing one of those Australian Kruger hats with a pipe hanging out of her mouth. They must have just thought, what on earth is happening here? But it's quite a kind of place the world's kind of forgotten. They're still kind of back in the 70s with their animal husbandry there and litter and things like that. So as a young man, it was quite frustrating to live there. But I at least identified that it was just as much, if not more, my problem than it was, the issues on the island.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting then. Where else? Have you been anywhere else then, or lived out anywhere else?
No, up in Liverpool for a bit. That was interesting.
Sure, they loved your accent over there.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. The immediate assumption, I think it was a defense mechanism.
You're a big C conservative, aren't you? They just assumed.
They assumed that I'd mentioned that I'm a Labour man, always have been, and with a Welsh father, which way is it really going to go?
Yeah.
But no, I don't often speak like this day to day. This is the way I like to speak, and this is my voice. But it's a lot easier just to drop my T's, not be so bloody plummy, because there's so much discrimination, particularly up north. When I was in Liverpool, that's where I kind of just spoke in a Welsh accent day to day.
Yeah.
Because I was tired of people just giving me a frown. And I think it's a defense mechanism. They assume that I'm going to look down on them, which of course I wouldn't. But it didn't help my defense mechanism for my kind of voice if I'm surprised. So I go really quite plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I got to Liverpool, got in a taxi, and the guy went, "You right, la?" I said, "Sorry." He went, "You right, la?" I said, "Sorry, sir, I don't understand what you're saying." He went, "You right, la?" I said, I don't know what la means. He went, "It means lad." I said, "Oh, yes, fine, thank you." I just thought at that point I should have just got out and gone back on the train to Brighton, but it was a lovely city.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Though.
Not quite Nice though.
No, not quite. I'm sure you would prefer Nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm being a good boy now. Actually, I don't mean to let you down, but I've had a couple of very big cigars earlier. And yeah, so I think I can see myself having a bit too much nicotine, too much of a good thing.
That can still happen at this stage in the game, then, yeah.
I'm trying to cut down on things nicotine, and I'm sure people will sigh about this, and God knows I do, but I still puff on cigarettes. But that's because I don't ever want my pipe hobby to become a habit.
Yeah, of course.
And I do love all things nicotine, really. So at the moment, as you may know, I'm on snuff, which is trying to get me off the e-cigarettes. And being a lover of history and particularly Lakeland flavors, I'm absolutely loving snuff. I've been mixing it with tobacco, which I've seen quite a lot of the South Americans do. Have you ever tried it?
No, I haven't. Yeah, you mentioned that to me before. I still haven't done it. Do you just sprinkle a little on a packed pipe, or?
Yeah, that's what I first did, but then I've got some ribbon cut and sprinkled it with ribbon cut, mixed it around in the bowl, and whacked it in. And it really is. It's lovely, really, really good. But as you can imagine, it puts hairs on the chest.
Yeah. Is it the unflavored stuff that you're using though?
Well, I got some from Sharrows in Sheffield, and I paid. I think it's dirt cheap, isn't it? I got £7.80. I've got a big variety of tins.
Yeah.
And so what I'll tend to do is I've got some Lakelands, I've got some quite menthol flavored ones. My favourite so far is I've got one called Africa, which is Burley and Kentucky.
Yeah.
Dark fried, and it's got topping. So as you can imagine, I whacked that with some Bob's Flake, and it was quite special. Absolutely lovely.
There's a Lakeland one called Jockey Club. You should look out for that. It's fantastic. Really, really nice.
Okay. And is that Gary Fogger?
No, it's not Wilson's of Sharrow either. Or is it? I'll find out for you, mate, because I can't remember. Or the other one, you're a fan of 1792 Flake. There's Elmo's Reserve snuff, which is 1792 snuff.
Oh, it's funny you say that. I bought some Tonka recently. Tonka bean.
Just bean itself, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you cooking with it, or cocktails, or what are you doing with it?
Well, the first thing I did, I made a panna cotta with it all ground up, which of course is just wonderful. But I've mixed it with some dark shag. The Gary Fogg dark shag, and it suggested, I've seen on the internet, they say just get a bean and just put it in the tin. Right. I imagine it would take quite a while for it to kind of permeate. So I am tempted. I've got quite a bit ground up. I am tempted just to kind of whack it all in. I do like overloading the senses a bit. Yeah. Hence me liking Bosun so much. Yeah. I don't know about you, but when I first lit up Bosun, the clove oil particularly, I almost had to put the pipe down. Just from a retrohale, it was just, God, what's this? But it seems to. I like flavors that take you just almost over the edge. And I think that's also important with tobaccos. I like to, when I'm first smoking tobacco, I like to push it a bit. So it gets a bit hot, see what's happening there, and then let it come way down and get the cadence, really slow. Because I find something like Solani Silver Flake. Have you ever had that?
I haven't. No, I've only had their aged Burley Flake. That's the only Solani tin I've had.
Well, if you like their aged Burley, then I think you'll probably you will love Silver Flake, maybe even a bit more. And I find if I smoke that with a slow cadence, like I would Kendall Cream or RB Plug, the ones that you need to have subtle flavors, you need to be soft with. Yeah. It can be quite bland. If you push it a little bit, then this really lovely roast nut comes out of it. And I don't know. I understand you are all about slow cadence.
Try to be.
I've been watching your videos. You seem to be very, very, very well disciplined with it. You've really got it down well. Do you ever come across a blend, because God knows I do, where you just kind of throw caution to the wind, you just can't help but keep supping at it?
There are blends like that, yeah, but it just depends what mood I'm in as well. But is Bosun not one of those for you, is it?
100%. 100%. A friend of mine, he's mostly cigar smoker, and he'll buy me cigars. I'll buy him pipe tobacco. We met and we're on the beach, and we did have a bit to drink as well, which of course will speed up, the puffing. And he said, you got to slow down there, mate. And I looked and went, no, I don't. It's Bosun. And it was his first time smoking it. And afterwards, I did mention to him, I said, you thought it was going to bite, didn't you? And he said, yeah, I thought, God, your tongue's going to hurt. But then he admitted he pushed it a bit, and it's so well behaved. Yeah. And I suppose in a way, that is it can be a dangerous thing about tobacco like that. You enjoy it a bit too much. I think I need to give it a break.
Right, it's in my top 5, definitely. Possibly even top 3. Yeah, I think so. I think if I had to, it would be my Lakeland at the moment. Yeah, I think. Revor Plug used to be there, but I think I've overdone it recently. And Yeah, but the tonka bean really just works with Kentucky, doesn't it? It's such a fantastic blend, 1792.
Yep.
But your idea with the putting in the tonka ground powder you could always put it in, mix it up, leave it, and then maybe use a sieve and try and sieve it
Yep.
out
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
didn't.
Drumstick. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. Because that is the interesting thing, isn't it? Because I know tonka bean can be very poisonous for particularly dogs.
Yeah.
And I do worry if because it has a kind of nutmeg quality to it.
Mm.
And as you know, a lot of people know, if you smoke nutmeg, it can really, it can give you it gives you a high, but a very depressed high. And of course, just because, well, yeah, just because 1792 has tonka in it, you know, I would be hesitant of just chucking it in and smoking it and maybe having a bad trip, which is the last thing you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, that's it. I'm trying to keep it at an hour anyway. Last thing I'll ask you then, just if you have you any important knowledge, or what would you like to impart to any new pipe smokers? Any kind of advice for them?
I'll just say don't be embarrassed.
That's a good one.
Which, yeah, it's silly, isn't it? It sounds like one of those kind of motivational things. I suppose it works for everything in life, but particularly pipe smoking. I get a lot of new pipe smokers that will send me, you know, direct messages or even comments on pictures and just say, you know, oh, I could really do with some help, and they really seem apologetic in asking me. And no matter how much I reassure them that it's honestly an honor for people to ask me, you know, and goodness knows that I will also turn around and say, follow this guy, ask this guy, because you know, I'm not an expert, you know, far from it. But the one thing I loved about the pipe smoking community, straight off, is that I love cigars, and the cigar smoking community, I'm sure, I'm not a member, obviously, so to speak, but cigars seemed to be there was a bit of, when my friend said, don't inhale, don't let it go out, you've got to light it like this, and all that. And as much as there are similar rules with smoking, I find it is such a welcoming community, and you've got to make your own mistakes, you know. I mean, look at me for the whole video today. I had to ditch one pipe because I've overhydrated my Latakia. This pipe, which is an absolute beauty from 1901, has not been getting on with this ribbon cut, which of course makes me look like an absolute novice. But at the end of the day, you learn, you live and learn.
We know you're not. Is that your oldest pipe? I forgot to ask you about old pipes as well. 19.
No, I've got a pipe from 1810 upstairs, a meerschaum. They're more common than you think, these meerschaums, the 1810 ones. But this would be one of the oldest Briar I have. Yeah, it's a Civic, and it's what people would call a mini size, but for me, it's just perfect. It doesn't look too small, and I can take this on a lunt. It'll last the whole lunt, and you know, for a good 40-minute walk, and then I might even get to sit down afterwards and finish it off with a beer. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very much for joining me, and keep us all updated with the podcast, and if there's anything I can do to assist, let me know, and hopefully maybe in the future we'll join you again, or we'll have a group Zoom at some point as well, and hopefully you'll be on it. Thank you.
That'd be fantastic. Well, thanks for having me. Cheers.
No problem. Thanks, Charles.